Your brother finally made partner. My father said it while we were stopped at a red light. His hands at 10 and 2 on the steering wheel, eyes forward, not looking at me. Never looking at me when he delivered these updates, 29 years old. Youngest in the firm's history, I watched the traffic light, counting the seconds until it would change and give me somewhere else to look. Green came. He drove. I said nothing. What was there to say? Congratulations traveled through me, but it didn't need to reach my brother. Through my father. He had enough messengers. My name is Sophie, I'm 32. And I've spent most of my life as the sibling footnote. Then also Sophie at the end of family updates. The name that gets added after a pause, the daughter whose accomplishments somehow always needed context, needed explanation, needed to be translated into terms that made sense. My brother Daniel was 3 years younger and had the kind of trajectory that photographs well. Law school at 23, associate at a prestigious firm at 26, now partner at 29. Every milestone documented, celebrated, used as evidence that our parents had done something right. I didn't resent his success. I resented the way mine was treated like a consolation prize for not being him. The comparison started early. Daniel got straight A's without trying. I worked myself sick for BS and was told I needed to apply myself more. Daniel made varsity soccer as a freshman. I made the debate team as a junior and no one came to watch. Daniel got into Yale. I got into a good state school with a full academic scholarship. And my mother told her friends I decided to stay close to home. After college, the divergence became more pronounced. Daniel went to law school. I went into nonprofit work, specifically environmental advocacy. The kind of work that felt important but didn't come with a salary that impressed anyone. I lived in a shared apartment, drove a 10-year-old car, and spent my days writing grants and organizing community meetings about watershed protection. My parents talked about Daniel's cases. They didn't talk about the legislation I helped pass, the river I helped save, the community I'd empowered to fight a development that would have poisoned their water. Environmental work, to them, sounded like something I'd eventually outgrow. The real shift started 2 years ago, when I was offered a position with a national environmental organization. Director of Regional Advocacy. The salary was finally decent, the work was meaningful. And for the first time, I'd have a platform that reached beyond local meetings. I took it without consulting anyone. I'd learned that asking my parents for their opinion usually meant hearing all the ways I should reconsider. I moved to a small house I could afford on my own. Not impressive by Daniel's standards, but it had a garden and a porch and morning light that made me want to wake up. I adopted a rescue dog named River. I dated a park ranger named Chris who understood why I'd spend a Saturday pulling invasive species out of a wetland. I was building something real. It just didn't fit anyone's definition of impressive. 6 months into the new position, I won a national award, the Greenfield Environmental Leadership Prize. It came with $50. Zero and recognition that opened doors I didn't know existed. Major media coverage, speaking engagements, consultations with federal agencies about policy reform. I didn't tell my family right away. I'd learned that sharing good news meant watching it get filtered through their understanding of what success looked like, which usually meant diminishing it until it fit next to Daniel's achievements without outshining them. But word travels in certain circles. A colleague of my father's saw the announcement, asked him about it at a golf club. My father had no idea. He called me that night. Why didn't you tell us about this award? His voice carried that particular confusion of someone who'd been made to look uninformed about their own child. I didn't think you'd be interested, I said. It's environmental work. The silence on the other end told me he heard what I didn't say. You're never interested. The next family dinner was scheduled a week later, Sunday at their house, the same house I'd grown up in, the same dining room where Daniel's achievements lined the walls and frames. I almost canceled, but some part of me, the part that still hoped, wanted to see if maybe this time would be different. Daniel was already there when I arrived. His wife Lauren beside him. Both of them in the kind of casual clothing that costs more than it looks. My mother hugged me briefly, asking about my drive. My father nodded from his chair. No one mentioned the award. We sat down to eat. My mother had made pot roast, Daniel's favorite. The conversation flowed in its usual channels. Daniel talked about a case he'd won. My father asked detailed questions, engaged and interested. Lauren talked about redecorating their condo. My mother offered suggestions. I ate quietly, the way I'd learned to eat at these dinners, present but not intrusive. Then my father, cutting into his meat, said almost casually, we saw you won some award. Environmental something, the Greenfield Prize. I said, environmental leadership. My mother smiled. That's nice, dear. Is there money with it? $50,000, I said. The table went still. Daniel's fork paused. Lauren looked up. My father finally met my eyes. 50,000, he repeated like he'd misheard. Yes, I said. And it's led to some other opportunities, speaking engagements, consulting work. I've made almost $200,000 in additional income this year from projects that came through the award. My mother blinked. 200,000 from environmental work, the way she said it. Like she couldn't reconcile those words together. Like environmental work was something you did until you got a real job. Yes, I said calmly. Turns out people pay well for expertise in environmental policy, especially when you've actually protected ecosystems and built coalitions that create lasting change. Daniel set down his fork. Soph, that's incredible. Why didn't you tell us? I looked at him. My little brother who'd never had to wonder if his accomplishments would be celebrated. Would you have asked, any of you? The question hung there. I've been doing this work for 10 years, I continued. I've passed legislation. I've protected watersheds. I've trained community leaders across 3 states. None of you have ever asked what I do. You know what Daniel does, you can recite his cases, but you've never once asked me about mine. My father shifted uncomfortably. We're interested in your work. No, I said gently. You're interested now because there's money involved, because $200,000 is a number you understand. But the work was always important. You just weren't paying attention. My mother's eyes were wet. That's not fair. It's exactly fair, I said. Do you know what I do every day? Do you know about the Clean Water Initiative I helped write? Do you know I've been quoted in the New York Times 3 times this year? Do you know that the governor called me personally to consult on environmental policy? Silence. They didn't know. Of course they didn't know. Lauren spoke first. I didn't know any of that. That's amazing, Sophie. I smiled at her, grateful. Then I looked at my parents. I didn't tell you about the award because I've learned that my success makes you uncomfortable. It doesn't fit the narrative you've built where Daniel is the successful one. And I'm still figuring things out. We never said that, my father protested. You didn't have to. I replied, every time you introduce us, Daniel goes first, his accomplishments lead. Mine follow, if they're mentioned at all. Every conversation centers him. Every dinner celebrates him. I'm the footnote, asterisk. My brother looked stricken. Sophie, I didn't know you felt this way. I know, I said. Because no one asks, I stood, my dinner barely touched. I love you all. But I can't keep showing up to be reminded that my life doesn't count unless it looks like Daniel's. So I'm going to step back for a while. Build my career. Protect my peace. And maybe when you're ready to see me for who I actually am, we can try again. I left through the front door, the same door I'd walked through 1,000 times. This time, I wasn't running away. I was choosing myself. The weeks that followed were quiet. My mother called once, her voice careful. Maybe we could have lunch. Just us. I said maybe, not yes. Not no, maybe. Daniel texted longer messages than he'd ever sent before, apologizing. Saying he'd taken for granted that they knew about my work. Asking if we could talk. I responded briefly. We could talk, eventually, when I was ready. My father sent an email, short, uncomfortable. I'm proud of you. I should have said it sooner. I saved it but didn't respond immediately. A month later, I spoke at a national environmental conference. My parents didn't know about it. Daniel did. He'd Googled me, he told me later. Found my speaking schedule. He came, sat in the back. Listened to me talk about building coalitions, about empowering communities. About the 10-year fight to protect a watershed that now served as a model for environmental advocacy nationwide. After he waited while others approached me with questions and cards and opportunities. When they cleared, he came forward. I had no idea, he said simply. I'm sorry, we got coffee. Talked for 3 hours. About the ways he'd been centered without asking for it. About the ways I'd been diminished without fighting it. About starting over, being siblings instead of competing narratives. It wasn't fixed, but it was honest. My mother came to my next speaking engagement. She didn't understand all the policy details, but she stayed through the whole presentation. Afterward, she hugged me tighter than she had in years. I'm sorry I didn't see this, she whispered. I'm seeing it now. My father took longer. 6 months after that dinner, he sent another email. Your mother showed me articles about your work. I've been reading them. I had no idea the scope of what you'd accomplished. I'm sorry I made you feel invisible. I called him. We talked. It was awkward, halting, but it was something. Now, a year later, I still maintain boundaries. I don't go to every family dinner. I don't accept every invitation. I protect my peace and my time and my energy for people who see me. Sometimes that includes my family. Sometimes it doesn't. Daniel and I are rebuilding something real. He asks about my work now. Sends me articles he thinks I'd find interesting. Introduced me to environmental lawyers in his firm. We're learning to be allies instead of competitors. My parents are trying. They mention my work to their friends now. My mother keeps a folder of articles about me. My father asked if he could watch one of my recorded presentations. They're learning to see me slowly, imperfectly, but they're trying. If this story feels familiar, if you've been the overlooked sibling, the one whose success didn't count because it didn't look right, know this: you're not obligated to keep showing up to be diminished. You can choose peace. You can choose boundaries. You can choose yourself. The people who love you will learn to see you. The ones who won't, who can't, who refuse to, don't get unlimited access to your life. You get to decide who sees your success, who celebrates your victories, who deserves a front row seat to your life. I built something real, something important, something that matters. It took my family time to see it, but I didn't need their permission for it to be true. Neither do you.